Let's go.
All right. I think we are live. Hello, everybody. I am the Orca man, Fred, and today is a very special day. It's the first recording that I'm going to be having of this podcast, and as a guest, I have my dad, Ralph. Before we go on any further, I'm just going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Very proud to be the first guest ever on the Orca Man podcast, and I'm Ralph, Fred's dad. He'll probably call me dad throughout this, but
Yes,
that's
definitely.
fine.
Yeah. So one of the questions I've always had, and like I grew up with killer whales ever since I was a kid, and you know this more than anybody else. But before you were thrown into the realm of killer whales that I brought you into, what did you know about them? What was your experience with them at all? Like, have you heard about them or anything?
I mean, hardly anything. I mean, you know of killer whales, obviously. Just they're out there. You've seen them in pictures and movies and documentaries and things like that, but really not very much at all. I think I knew they were dolphins and not whales.
Oh, fair enough. It was funny because I remember I was reading, I think it was like in the very beginnings of the orca capturing. They actually sent one to Coney Island in like the late 60s. So like when you were just born, I'm pretty sure. Like late 60s, early 70s. I don't know how long it was stayed though, which I always found hysterical.
So that's only relevant because I'm from Brooklyn and that's where I was born and grew up. The rest of your audience probably doesn't know that. But
that's very fair.
I did go to Coney Island quite a bit when I was a kid, to the aquarium, to the boardwalk, to the beach. It's a great place to go.
There's an aquarium on Coney Island?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Aquarium, or it might be called the New York Aquarium. You've probably been there. I'm sure we've taken you at some point. I'm sure Uncle Joe has taken you because he's had a membership for years.
You gotta love it. Oh, he works in the city otherwise. But yeah, that was always we haven't gone in definitely a while, but I totally forgot that even existed at the same time. One of the things too, so like then you get thrown into the world with me. I think it was, for those of you who don't know, at 3 years old, I saw Free Willy and I dove head first. It was quite the obsession, as like what I call like a dinosaur phase. But when you were first beginning to indulge me, let's say, what was the first couple inklings or thoughts that you had of like, okay, how can we like feed this obsession?
Well, it was I think both like, how can we feed it? Because you were a kid and you were interested. So it's always fun you were excited anytime you did anything with killer whales. But it was also, I think, always waiting. All right, when is this going to drop off? When is it going to be the things like, all right, enough killer whales, enough stuffed animals, enough shirts, enough books, enough whatever. But it never seemed to matter, right? Whatever it wasn't enough. It was wanted more.
Was there a point where you realized, or where you sat down and like maybe there isn't going to be a drop off point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still indulging, right?
Oh, definitely.
In that sense, I mean, from where you went to school to what you're trying to do, it's, how should I say this? I think the funniest thing is not only are we indulging, but everybody knows that you're into killer whales, so people send you stuff. If they see an article, they send it to you. Right? Yeah, but like that happened today.
It did. That was one of the funniest things, and it's always like the most random occurrence with that, which makes it even more fun because there's no reason I would have talked to whoever reached out today.
Yeah, like a random friend of mine from college. Yeah, saw an article and sent it to you and to us and said, "Hey, I thought of you." Like this is. Yeah, I don't think it's dropping off anytime soon.
I would hope not, at the very least. At the very least. No, that's what makes it fun though, right? It's like this is the thing too about the realm of orcas that I've come to find as I've gotten older too, is like there's always something more. Like, don't get me wrong, the community is small. The amount of people that are actually focusing on orcas is not that many when you actually look at it. But I'm still finding stuff after what? I think it's 22 now, 19 years.
You keep finding new ones.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, the interesting part is you're interested in everything.
Fair.
About killing. Everything. Right? Not just these whales in this place, not just this place, not just whales in the wild, not just whale shows, right? Just everything is still fascinating to you.
Yeah, it's a weird, I'll call it niche to dive into, especially because there's only so much around that I've seen where people will dive into like something so specific yet so incredibly broad. But that's also too like the way that I've thought about it continuously. I'm one of my favorite things that you've given me throughout the past years, or like told me, is there's not just researchers, there's not just killer whale trainers. And it's the thing that not a lot of people think about. Even when, like, I remember when I first started thinking about professions, there's such a very defined roles that like we as kids will come up to think about, and there's so much more out there that we have no clue is real, at the very least.
Yeah, I
Having
mean,
fun.
just think of how many people are working or are passionate in and around something about killer whales.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the stuff that is just on your desk, right? Somebody designed that, that little statue, right? Somebody made that artwork, but it wasn't you.
No,
right?
no, I can say that.
Somebody, there are photographers and painters and artists and all these things that are fascinated by killer whales, and that's part of what they do, right?
Yeah.
There's books, there's merchandise, there's whale watches, there's the SeaWorlds and the marine lands and all that stuff all around you. That's way more than just people who are doing research, and it's all important.
Oh, 100%. And it's also fun too, because then you get to realize that there's more opportunity to enter the realm as well. Like the people who are doing research, they need an accountant. They need somebody. One of my best friends I will call it like within the science department is the woman who searches for funding for the Marine Mammal Research Unit and other science like organizations at UBC. Like that's a great person to know, and she's wonderful.
Well, that's a little more interesting than being the whale's accountant.
Yeah, the person going for the budget. How much do we have to like film them?
Or doing their taxes or something like that. Yeah.
A person does exist though, which just makes me all the happier. It's just funny to think that that's actually someone's job.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're specialists in everything. I mean, just outside of whales, they're specialists in everything.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. Even like looking back into the history of killer whales, there was like the guy who knew how to ship orcas.
Like, who figured that out? Who figured that out? No, seriously, right? I mean, what did they ever ship before that was that big?
And had so many, I'll call it like necessities around it. Like they have to be alive. You can't tranquilize them, otherwise they die. So like they need to be alive the whole process. It's absurd. Right. You need to keep them cool and wet.
Yeah, you were doing it for a specific purpose. I mean, there were obviously whalers going back hundreds and hundreds of years, but they're doing something completely different.
Oh no, without a doubt. One of the
who designed the first whale tank?
Yeah.
When you're gonna keep it, like, how do you figure out what do you need for something like that?
It trial and error as far as I've like seen. There's one book that I've been reading though. It's about this whale named Miracle, and it was this small whale back in like I think it was the like 72, 73, and they took Miracle. I don't know how many of you have seen Free Willy, but they like put it in a sling in the back of a truck and drove it down Vancouver Island because it was like it had a bunch of infections. It was cut all over. It was going to die. So they're like, let's save the whale. So they took the whale in, but they drove down from, the top of Vancouver Island to the bottom, which is the equivalent of like the top of Maine to New York.
It's like 6 hours.
Something stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd.
And it survived?
And it survived down the way. I haven't finished the book quite yet, so there's still a lot to come, but
you don't know how it ends.
Transformed a hotel pool in order to keep it for a little bit.
A hotel pool.
Yes. It was like it wasn't even an attraction, but they needed a facility to hold it, and the pool wasn't being used. They're like, all right, we're going to get our plumbers on it. They like called a bunch of people in the trades around. They like came and janked the pool together to make it a saltwater pool that could continuously be drained, refilled, and otherwise just in case it sank too. It's absurd, the stuff that's happening.
Hotel. I can't even picture a whale turning around in a hotel pool.
No, that's gonna be a big hotel pool. I'm gonna.
What happened? It came off?
I think it just came off. We'll do this real quick. But yeah, right? Like you have to imagine like somebody had to get that call at the hotel though too and be like, hey, we want to use your pool. Why?
You'd be like,
We have an
what?
orca coming down now.
Yeah, what?
Like
Really?
you can't plan for that either. Which is just absurd.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is fascinating.
Without a doubt. One of the other questions I always wanted to ask you is like, what was your favorite indulgence? Well, there's two. One, what was your favorite indulgence to watch me do? Because you've been with me through 90% of the experiences that I've had
Yeah.
with killer whales, and you've curated some of them. But what was your favorite to create, so to speak?
Those are good. That's a good question. There are so many. I mean, you were little when we went to Marineland,
Yeah.
right? And you got to like pet, touch, whatever. They had like a touch tank for the killer whales. That was amazing.
That was insane. How old? When was that?
You might have. I mean, I don't think you were 10 yet. You were probably like 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
That was amazing because it was such. I mean, that was the whole trip was so that you could do that, right? We found out that this place existed, in Ontario, Canada, where you could do this, and we planned a whole vacation around it. So that was pretty indulgent. Yeah. And we had fun. We had fun otherwise, but that was pretty amazing.
That's fair.
I gotta say that's probably the most unique thing.
It's also a unique thing that I've never seen that anywhere else.
I think we were floored that it existed.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't find that anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, let alone now. There's all the things going on now with Marineland especially, but like even back in the early 10s, even back when killer whales shows like were happening in the 90s and 80s, that wasn't a thing. As far as I knew, I was like, I can't now find any record of stuff like it. Yeah,
I mean, who knows what exists? I mean, you probably know better than anybody what else exists around the world. But that was amazing.
That's fair. Did you end up going up as well at one point to like do the experience?
I don't know if I remember if I did or not. I know like there was a lot of time with the dolphins too, because your sisters like dolphins because you could feed them and all that stuff, and they were a little more interactive, whereas I think they kept the whales pretty calm. And I don't remember how much it cost. Like, I mean, you couldn't just do it indefinitely. Like you had to pay and take your turn and stuff like that. So I think just however many times we could afford to go, we just let you do it. Like it didn't pay for anybody else to do it. It just wasn't worth it.
No, that's more than fair. I can only imagine who else was in line as well. That's one thing. Like I remember being at the side of the tank. I can remember seeing the whale and being like, "What is going on? This is absurd." But actually, like I don't remember anything else about that whole experience. It's hard.
Do you know, like in all the stuff you've done since? Do you know the whales there? Like I know there were more when we went back with Jack and Javon. There was only one whale left.
Yes.
I forget how many there were when we went the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who those whales are?
I don't, but I know where to find it.
Okay.
It's one thing that would be definitely interesting, and I haven't put in the proper work to see it because I still have the picture of me petting the whale, and I'm pretty sure you can see its eye patch. So there might be a way to.
You might actually be able to identify that specific whale.
I might be able to. Yeah. The only whale there is Kiska. But that's a really good question. I've thought about it before. I haven't dove. I haven't had a reason to, but now I think I do.
I got to stump you. That was good.
That's well done. Well done. I'm interested to see how much that's going to happen.
I just ruined your whole night. It just ruined your whole night.
You gave me another bit of research. I'm going to do that rather than homework for a little bit, which would be solid. The other question I wanted to ask, and this one I feel like we'll be able to interact a little bit more even so, is what is your favorite indulgence that you've enjoyed sharing? Because there's one where you've created so many experiences for myself, but we've had our fair share.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know what you mean. so I can answer it correctly.
Let me rephrase and see if I can. It's like, what was your favorite interaction that both you and I had with orcas, or around the realm at the very least, and like specific occurrence? Like we definitely did that the trip down in 2014 to San Juan Island, but even like on that
was
trip,
it 2014? It was that long ago.
It was that long ago.
Wow.
It freaks me out that it was that long ago.
So I think there were two, right? And I think it's hard to choose between them.
Okay.
Right. So one is that whole trip that we took, which is the first time you went to San Juan Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I was there. And we did a lot, right? For a week, we took a couple of whale watches. We did all this other stuff. But there was at one time where we were hanging out at Lime Kiln, and you could have just sat there all day long, all week long.
Yeah.
Right. But there was at one time we were there, and the whales, and I forget how many, but like there's a little pod that came by while we were sitting out there. They were so close. Yeah. Right. Like that was really amazing because it was, I don't know, it was more natural, right? It's not, you're on a whale watch boat. Of course, you're going to, they're going to do everything they can to go see whales. They're figuring that out. This was just, lucky, right? We happened to be sitting there when they came by.
Yeah.
And they were so close. And I'm sitting there the whole time, like ready to grab you when you're about to jump in the water. I'm just expecting that you're going to jump in the water. But that was one. And then the second was that time where we went to SeaWorld and it was just you and me and not everybody. And you got picked to be in the whale show.
Yeah.
Right. Not that you got to touch them, but the whole SeaWorld production
was there.
Where you got to be the kid.
Yeah.
You're on the big screen and the trainers came and talked to you and all that stuff.
No, that was insane. That was one of the coolest things I think I've seen SeaWorld do. So like the one before, the interaction with the whales, right? It was Marineland. It's a totally different company, but SeaWorld specifically with the Believe show, it's a thing of beauty, to be honest. I no matter what you say about killer whales or otherwise, they really ingrain the sense of, one, there's more killer whales out there in the wild, but two, like the aspect of connecting the audience to the whales even more, which I found absurd.
SeaWorld's probably done as much as anybody to get people interested in killer whales, right? Whether they're doing the right thing by them or not, whatever, way more than I do about all the history and what they're doing, but sure got a lot of people excited about it.
Yeah. And trainer Art, that was the guy who was the trainer that day. I can remember, like, I think I have the pendant somewhere. It's either in a box here or in a box at home.
Trainer Art.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we did the breakfast, where you got to like eat next to the tank and the trainers came in. That was fine and that was fun. But being in the whale show was great because you had to get chosen, right? You couldn't pay for it, you couldn't sign up for it, you couldn't do any of those things. You just had to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And you did well for that though. You knew a little bit of the process of how to figure that out. I will say I gotta thank you for that. Because I think it was some guy at the concession stand or otherwise where you like went up and were like, hey, what's the deal?
The nice thing about that trip was that it was just you and me, right? So it was you and me, and we had the whole day, and your sisters weren't there, so you didn't have to worry about like somebody wants to do this or somebody wants to do that. And your mom was with her cousin, so we could just, you want to see the whale show 5 times? Fine. Right, just whatever. I forget how old you were. Maybe it was after we'd gone to Marineland. So maybe you were 10 or 11.
Yeah, I would say so.
And so I think we did the breakfast. That maybe that was a different trip. I don't know. I can't even tell you how many times we've been to SeaWorld. But I think we went to one of the gift shops and we were just talking. I'm like, what else can we do? Like, are there any other experiences? Is there any other things that you can sign up for or pay for or anything else. And they said the only thing is to be in the show. And so it was kind of quiet there. So we just started talking, and somebody was really nice enough and said, there's no, like, you can't volunteer for it, but I'll tell you that they usually look for somebody over here around an hour before the show. So, and I think there were a couple of things they said that stuck out to me. Like, let's see if I can remember them. One is you're around the right age, right?
Yeah.
They don't want 5-year-olds and they don't want 20-year-olds, right? So you were around the right age. They said, first, you were wearing like just a regular shirt. They said if you're wearing a shirt that had a logo on it, they wouldn't pick you because that's
branding, whatever.
If you're wearing a Nike shirt or something, whatever. They just didn't do that. And the third thing they said was just be calm, right? Like you have to be like, if you were 10 years old and you were climbing all over everything and jumping around, then they would be nervous about having you in the show. So they're not looking for that. So I think we just, we went to go do something, and then we came back and we just hung out in that spot for a while, and I'm just like, just be cool, just sit still.
I think I can remember just me and you
just
hitting each other.
Yeah, like just relax and we'll see. And then I remember like somebody came, like you could see somebody up on the parapet just kind of scanning the crowd calmly. And I'm like, Fred, that's and they came over and talked to you, and then they picked you. It was great.
I was insane. And I said
the only thing I can't believe, right, is this was just like early cell phone days, so you didn't really have cell phones with cameras and stuff. And I didn't bring the camera or anything because they just said, that's not what we're here for. It's gonna be your day. We can do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe there's no video that exists of this, and there should be video that exists.
That's fair.
But it does not.
That's fair.
I had to go back and buy a picture.
4.
Yeah, like they took a few pictures because that's just what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it that was it. That is the only record of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like the official SeaWorld photographer pictures.
Yeah, those are the ones that I do have. I have like 4 of them, but I never thought about that.
When they were done, I don't know if I called your mom then or told her when I got home. I said, I would have paid $1,000 right then for the video. Like if I could. Yeah. But it just didn't exist. So I was just able to buy a few photos, and that was it.
No, that's crazy. And it's amazing. That's insane. Because now that I think about it, the only other video that I can remember that was ever taken at SeaWorld by you guys too, we don't have that either.
Which?
So I heard a story that it was like one of the VHS-C tapes was taken on like one of my first trips to SeaWorld. I think it was the first trip to SeaWorld. Where I like run in and then like go do my thing, but there was recording of it, but it was inside, the tape was inside the camera when the house got broken into, and
it got stolen.
I think it got stolen.
Wow.
From what I've heard, I think I've heard this from Mom, but I'm pretty sure that there was one tape of that
there may be. We probably took video your first time there.
Yeah,
I think that feels like a thing we would have done. And the timing's about right. Oh, that would be a shame.
It's insane. It's amazing too, though, how much video, like it's such a switch as to now, where it's like you have your phone on you. It has insane video capabilities. It's insane storage and things like that. So I'm interested to see.
Yeah, you would have sent it to 1,000 people right at that moment.
100%.
Your grandma would have gotten the video right away. Whatever. We would have sent it to your friends to make fun of you.
Definitely. Yeah, it's weird too, because that was what? I'm gonna guess that I was 11, and the only reason I'm gonna guess that I was 11 was because I can remember my haircut.
It was short hair.
It was short hair, but it was like it wasn't even the bob. It was just like it was a mop.
Yeah.
But I can remember that for sure. Which is crazy.
That's about right.
Yeah.
That's about right. Yeah. So it's I think it's those two things because they were really unique and hard to replicate.
Yeah.
You can go on 1,000 whale watches and they'll all be great, but they'll be similar.
You're
right?
being
But
taken.
Yeah, but sitting at lime kiln and having the whales come, like you know, within spitting distance basically, and then that time to be picked to be in the show was really crazy. It was just us.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't it wasn't the whole family. There weren't 20 of us with like your cousins and everything else. It was just you and me.
Yeah. No, I think I love what you picked, especially there. You're exactly right. Like you cannot, even if you tried, those cannot be replicated at all. And
No.
what I remember too is when the whales came by, when they were close, because there was two different times that I can remember with that, like us being on lime kiln casually and whales coming by. One of them we might have been tipped off, but even so, like it's still chance. But the time that you're talking about, I'm pretty sure that was when the lighthouse keeper was there, and that was Alki. That was J-Pod. I'm pretty sure.
I think so. I think that's right.
And
so, why is Alki special?
Right. So this had to have been 2011, 2012 as well, which is funny enough in terms of timing, but it was the first time that I ever heard of the Whale Museum. My parents adopted an orca for me. You guys adopted an orca for me from the Whale Museum. Her name was Alki J36, and that was how I started to think about. That was actually the very first time I started seriously thinking about whales in the wild, because it wasn't a thought before, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I got my girl over there. I want to keep tabs on her. I want to make sure she's doing well. But yeah, so that's the story of Alki. So that was what 2011, 2012, and then 2014. We go out and we haphazardly. It is insanely lucky to be able to not only see orcas that close, but to see the orca that I have been keeping up with that entire time, which made that whole trip another cherry on top. It's probably filled at this point.
It's like she knew you.
It's like she knew me. Yeah. There was one other time though. I think it was 2 days in, because the first day we went, I'm pretty sure we spent every night at least like an hour on lime kiln, just hanging out, just enjoying the night.
You pretty much insisted on it.
Yeah, we were there for a week, right?
You would have slept out there.
There's not a doubt in my brain. I remember the laptop was open, the hydrophones were on, we were ready, hearing for anything, listening to the tanks go by.
Yeah.
But it was like the second night. So the time that we were there, when the whales were super close and it was Alki, there was just other people there at the time. It was like midday. I remember that was a shared experience with people, as I would call it. Like you and I were there. But.
Yeah, a lot of times we went, it was kind of like at dusk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very crowded, but at that moment there was the middle. It was the middle of the day. It was a nice day. There were, it's about as crowded as it gets over there for whatever reason.
Like middle of the day in August. There was a day though, I think it was like the day before or 2 days before that we were out at dusk, and we saw two orcas go by, like far. Like they weren't close. They were like 100 meters out. But we're sitting there and we saw orcas go by, and I remember sitting there. I'm like, that was, I think, when I realized, one, I sincerely believe that section is where they filmed this first shot of Free Willy. Like I am convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, especially seeing the sunsets.
Well, you would know.
Oh, right. But furthermore, the whales that went by then, I remember sitting down and just thinking, like, it was just me and you. Like there wasn't another car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And they were swimming by about 100 meters away. I remember sitting down just like, this is real. It is.
It exists.
It exists. Like we don't. It was nothing other than being in the right place at the right time, just like the other ones as well. But especially that one too, where like no one else is around, which is an experience that it's not one that you can get. very.
No.
It's not one that is given to many people. That's a better way.
No, like I said, I don't want to keep talking about the whale watch, but you go on a whale watch and there's whoever else is on the boat with you. There's other boats that are out there. It's fantastic, but it's not just your experience.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes a big difference. It's useful, but it's a different kind of thing. It's one of my favorite things. So I actually realized there's a place called, or not a place, it's an organization. It's called the Whale Trail. So they're actually starting an initiative going up and down the British Columbia coast and the Washington coast and placing stands like the one at Limekiln. I'm not sure if that's one of theirs, but
Okay.
it's like the Whale Trail. It's promoting land-based whale watching. So I know like in BC, they have QR codes that you can scan to get the BC cetacean sightings app and organize yourself for it. But it's definitely something that's gaining more and more popularity as I've seen going forward too, which is neat. Like proper initiatives going forward with it.
Yeah, places, otherwise you got to be on the hunt for places that are, good potential spots. And not a lot of people have the patience you have to go there every day and sit for 3 hours hoping that something comes.
No, it definitely makes a difference. I would say we were lucky enough. I remember like there was a trainer. No, not a trainer. We were in San Juan Islands. There was one of the naturalists actually gave us her number. It was like I will let you know if I see whales on there. Like if there are whales going by the side of the island, so we could like jet out or something like that. Which is ever more funny.
Yeah, people. Your enthusiasm is a little contagious.
That much is seen. I still can't. One of the reasons that I think I've gotten this far is that people have continued to indulge with excitement, and with excitement is the key word there. Like
I said earlier, I mean, it's amazing. It's just, you've been into this for so long, and you're so passionate about it that everybody we know knows that you're into this. So they sit, you're Orca man, right? So they hear anything, they're like, oh, I got to tell Fred. Oh, I wonder what Fred thinks about this. Oh, I got to send this to him, and they do.
Yeah, it's one of the things
they wouldn't pay attention otherwise.
No,
yeah,
there's no reason to. It's right over the head. Yeah. And also too, like once you have that connection, once you know somebody gets excited about it. I was talking to a friend a couple days ago, and he said like, thanks for always like passing the vibe check. The vibe check is like making sure that I'm excited or whatever. It's like, oh, like ready, you're here to do whatever it might be. And the thing that I responded to him with is like, it's easy when it's corroborated. Like if you think of excitement when you see me, then you will be excited, which will make me then excited. Like it's definitely a pull and push thing as well, which is funny.
So I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
Right. Because we just talked about your experience and your enthusiasm for killer whales. Yeah. Do you have friends who are as enthusiastic about other things the way you are about this? And like, the follow-up would be, what do you do to help them? Right. Like, because I think it's rare for anybody to be this excited about anything.
to this extent, at the very least, it's something that I haven't seen too much of. So there's two that come to mind immediately. So one is Bruno. So Bruno's a friend that I met in first year. We were both in the same orientation group. We're roommates now. Like it's been wonderful to be friends with him all like past 4 years now, which is I don't even want to think about that.
Big Bruno fan right here.
Great dude. I have never seen somebody so passionate about like the meticulousness and the correct way to cook. Like he boils it down to a science. It is impressive. Like when he makes burgers, he's like, okay, so I'm going to make the sourdough starter to make the buns. I'm going to like get the exact cut of beef that I want to. I want to ground it down, like make sure he knows where he gets all the ingredients. But even better than that, like he's been making ragu and Alfredo and a couple other Italian dishes. But he makes them like, he makes the recipes that the Italian government has deemed as the Italian recipes for each of these dishes.
Yeah, but see, that's not fair because he gets to be passionate about that and you get to eat good food and he has to listen to your whale stories.
Yes.
That is not a good trade.
Not at all, but I don't know how to collaborate with that one. It's like buying the ingredients and indulging him and saying like, no one talk to him. He's doing his thing.
You can do the dishes, I guess.
I can do I can clean up. I can make sure everything looks fine. But that's definitely one thing that that passion has. It's something with giving that is definitely not hard. It's definitely not easy to replicate in something like Orcas.
Yeah. But
that'd be one.
I can't help but give you like fatherly advice, right? But that's a thing to think about, right? The way you're so passionate about orcas and the way you've gotten all these other people excited and interested about it. When you meet people who are really excited about stuff, be excited with them. Like be a part of it. It's a good
fun.
thing.
It's just fun. One of the other guys, you remember Cam?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Cam is another one of my friends. I met him in first year, but we like connected last year, I believe. So he's helping me out with actually the whole the project that we got going on right now. But Cam also he built his own hydroponic system. Like he's really into garden. He's an engineer, he's a mechanical engineer, and he's doing a whole bunch of stuff. But like he's mad because he has a garden back home. He's from I'm gonna leave that out for now. But he's a garden back home and wanted to keep doing it. And he was like trying to figure out the best way to. So he created his own hydroponic system. Two is he's pumps for the chemicals in order to make sure that all the plants get the right nutrients they need and stuff like that. He was talking to me about getting an ion, creating an ion sensor for whatever it might be. But hearing him go off about that is it's fascinating to watch the gears turn in his head as well.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff it's just fun. Yeah, without a doubt. Is there anybody that let's throw it back on you, that has been has a passion to a similar extent? It's kind of grown with it.
I mean, it's different. I'm a lot older than you, right? So you find as people get older, they get more into the things that they're into. You know, and obviously in a professional setting, you meet people who are really. I meet people in my job who are world-renowned experts in, planning or architecture or things like that, and it's fascinating to talk to them because, they're at the top of their field. They know all the stuff. They've done everything. They've met everybody. It's fun to argue with them too.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, but to just share their passion.
Yeah, without a doubt. And this is like you're saying, these guys top in their field. One of the quotes that I don't know whether or not I heard it or I came up with it. A lot of these guys, when you sit down, imagine one conference is it's another one is you're working on projects together. But when people say that oh, I want a seat at the table, I wonder if you have any thoughts on this at all. The thing that people don't know is that the table is usually a plastic folding table. No matter where you are.
I mean, I think depends. First of all, any field, no matter what it is small once you get into it, right? It's way smaller than you think. But I think what most people want, if there's something that they're really interested in, is they want to be a part of it, right? They want to be a part of the latest conversation. They want to be talking to the other people who are just as passionate and just as engaged and know all this stuff. Because that's who. When you already know this much, you're only going to learn from people who know a little bit more than you.
Yeah.
Right. It's fun to share your knowledge down, but you're interested in this. You want to know more. So you got to talk to people who know more than you do. And that list gets smaller and smaller.
That's funny. Have you seen that list get smaller as you've gone, I'll call it through the ranks? Personally.
It's funny, right? I tell this to other people in my profession who, I've been doing my job for 25 years, and you get to a certain level and you just got to own the fact that you're at a certain level. And it happened to me a few years ago. I would kind of look around the room going oh, that's a good question. I wonder who's going to answer it. And they're like, oh crap, it's me. like I'm the oldest person here, or I've been more experienced, or I know more about this than anybody else. So I guess I'm the one who has to answer this.
Interesting.
Or be responsible or whatever.
Yeah. That's gotta be quite the reality check at the very least.
It's like the opposite of that line in Rounders, right? Remember Rounders, the poker
Of course.
movie? Where, he says, what Matt Damon says, if you're sitting at the poker table and you can't spot the sucker in the first 5 minutes, then you're the sucker. It's like the opposite of that.
Fair. That's a pretty good way to put it, I think, too. It's like it's gotta be quite the experience too. Because like I'm coming to the point now where even I'm talking to freshmen even in college, and this is a whole other realm, but like they'll ask questions or ask me about what I'm doing, even asking me questions about this Orca stuff, and they're asking questions as if I have every answer they could ever want, as like a senior who knows stuff, and I'm looking at them like I don't feel personally like I know much more than you do now. Like I know I do to a certain extent, but there's definitely a mental catch up that has to be played for what you actually know and how you feel.
Well, you're never gonna know everything, right? I mean, you've talked to some of the leading people in the field, right? You talked to Ingrid Visser.
Yeah.
If she thought she knew everything, she would stop doing research.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're never at the point, especially in something like this, where you're gonna know everything, right? The more you know, the more you want to know, right? The more you know, the more you know that you do not know.
Yeah.
And you want to try to figure it out.
Well, that's the fun part, is that there's always going to be something else. There's always something else to dive into as well. It's one of my most favorite parts. The professor that I met earlier this year in March, his name is Jason Colby, is Dr. Jason Colby. He's a professor at the University of Victoria, but he wrote this book. Orca.
If you were smart, you would have put it on top.
If I was smart, I would have put it on top. But that's okay. I wasn't sure if he was going to come up. I'll put it properly faced up. I asked him earlier if he would come on. He did say yes. I'm very excited about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did, which I'm psyched about.
Excellent. Get a few of these under your belt first, but yeah.
Oh, I told him like very specifically, it's like, wait till I have it underway. I want to make sure it's pretty seamless when you walk in. But when I met him, he opened up another realm of Orca history that I would have never thought of. Like I was able to talk to some of the founders of Orca research from a history perspective that I've seen. So I can drop one name. So John Ford. John Ford is the father of Orca acoustic research. He's the guy who pioneered it. He was doing like acoustic work. He was the person who found out that orcas had different dialects, as far as I know. And he's like an associate professor for the Marine Mammal Research Unit at UBC, like no longer taking grad students, still doing some work on the side. But like I would have never had the chance to talk, ever had the chance to even like speak a word with him. And I'm talking with Jason. I'm like, I'm going to write a paper on the history of like how Orca research, how the census that happened back in the 70s led to Orca research today.
Yeah.
And I had an interview with him 2 weeks later, like on nothing. It's amazing how roundabout these things can be too.
Yeah, and it's again, if you're interested and engaged, if people want, people feel that, right? They want to feed that.
Yeah, and it's fun too because it's one of the things about what I'm doing right now, and I got to thank you as well for even just putting forward the idea of like do a podcast, do a YouTube channel, whatever it might be, because talking to people about the stuff that they're interested in and like truly being interested rather than trying to get anything out of them, like. The only thing I'm trying to get you to do is be excited. Like you don't need information. You don't need anything else. I truly want to hear why you enjoy this so much, why you continue to do it. It's amazing the responses that you can get from people. Yeah. I gotta say.
That's fun to watch somebody be excited about stuff. Talk about the things they really know. They know a lot about.
So tell a little bit about your job before I ask this next question, because this is, you need a little bit of context.
All right, I'm a transportation planner, which, if I'm being fancy, I like to call myself an integrated mobility planner, which means I understand a lot about all the different aspects of a transportation system. The roadway network, a transit system, pedestrian networks, parking systems, all those things. But I think a lot of what I do is figuring out how all those pieces fit together, in a downtown, on a campus, in any environment where you're trying to achieve something else. So that's a lot of what I do all over the country, a lot here in Boston and Massachusetts, for cities, for towns, for government agencies, for transit agencies, etc.
That's super neat. I always learn something new whenever you try to explain it again.
That's an elevator speech now.
That's well done. You did well. So with this though, some of the places that you go to, cities, campuses, or otherwise, you got to talk to. You have like open forums where people can show up.
Yeah.
So I'm passionate about killer whales. I'd love to get people excited about killer whales. Have you ever? I'm going to imagine too, in some of these places that you've gone to, if you go to like, let's say the city of Somerville.
Yeah.
Are there a couple people that you know that will like show up to the first 3 meetings and you're like, you're going to be here for the next 5 months or how until this project is over, like keeping tabs? Just one of the like people from the public.
Oh yeah, I mean it's funny because it happens everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. You can tell often the people that are just into this stuff, right? So they're at, and it's not just my meetings, right? They're at any meeting around any of these kinds of topics because they're interested in it. They want their city, their town, whatever to work a certain way, and they're really trying to learn and to push something. That's different from the people who show up to a meeting because I really care about this thing or I don't like what you're doing. So for folks in the audience, if you've seen Parks and Rec or something like that, where you get crazy people or people who are just, I don't want that thing here, and they're going to yell. That happens. That always happens. But the folks who are really engaged and passionate and are reading articles and are reading up on this stuff before the meeting, so they're trying to be educated and bring some new thoughts to a process that's always kind of fun.
I bet that was one of the neatest parts about, I think, like whenever I've heard you talk about your job, like the integration that you have in terms of trying to figure out like what is it that people want, what is it that people need, and having like the places where they'll actually tell you is only so much in my head too. So.
Well, it's true, and I think that's a big part of what you do as a professional in any job is they're going to come to a meeting, they're going to come to a discussion or something, they're going to come to a plan. They want something or they don't want something, but they're not very good at actually explaining the thing that they want or how that fits into the thing that you're doing. And that's your job, right? And that's your job as Orca Man, right? People care something about orcas, but they don't know about all the other stuff that they're supposed to know about. It's the same for us. Like, I know you want this, but you can't do this unless you do these 3 other things. And let me explain why. And and that's not the thing you want. The thing you actually want is this, because that's going to get you to the place where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
That's any profession, right? If you're able to do that, you're probably going to be successful.
It's definitely a hard thing. And even I found this in some of my classes, and it's really peeved me. It's like whenever you're doing anything, it's like you want to boil down to the smallest position. It's like, why do you want this to happen? If somebody says like, I don't want that stop sign there, it's like, it's not that you don't want that stop sign there. It's like, there's something happening that you don't like.
That's exactly it. Right. Let's talk about the thing you don't like.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me more about the thing you don't like. Then we can attack the thing you don't like. Yeah.
Well, it's the most specific part about any conversation that I've had, even in geography. And it's the hardest part that I hate about class, because it's not about solving problems. It's a process. It's like, oh, you're going to do this, and then this, rather than like, what is the goal? what needs to be solved and why are we solving it and how are we doing it? That's not usually what what people go towards at the very least. It's not what I see.
You're gonna
being
make me
taught a lot.
smile because this means you're listening to me, right? Because this is the way I think. So.
Well, it's the right way to, and even like I've been able to find so many analogies through killer whales, if only because I have known so much. Like
Yeah.
like it's the one place where I'm like I can pick apart a lot of different experiences because I have them in this specific realm. But one of my favorite like conversations to have with people, or one of my favorite responses to this very particular question of like, what do you think of SeaWorld? What do you think what do you think of captivity? It's such a pointed question. It's such a pointed question that's baiting for a specific answer, whereas like that's not the question you want to ask me. It's like there's more.
Can I ask you a question, right? Because there's so, and I know we've been doing this for a while, right? So I don't want to go for another 2 hours. But you know, when Blackfish came out, and there's all the, you know, and even the literal Free Willy movement, right?
Yeah.
With that stuff. And I get it, and I understand it, but all the folks that feel that way about whales, do they feel that way about every other animal that is in a zoo?
It's a good question. It's a great.
You know, is
question.
anybody saying like free the giraffes or you know? No, I'm serious, right? Or
Yeah.
the polar bears or the whatever.
Is there a movement that is even close to as big as, I'll call it, the killer whale one?
I mean, maybe they're not doing, I get it, right? There's no giraffe show, right? You know, there's no polar bear show, but
even so, it's a good question because it's such a hot topic, and it's also, I'll say it this way, and it's not the best way to put it. It's a sexy topic, like you hear killer whale, people get excited, people get opinionated otherwise. But the answer that I'll give you is the answer that I'll give you is twofold. So the one thing about killer whales that's different than a lot of other animals is that people have started to really pay attention to killer whale populations in the wild. You can go on a safari wherever they have safaris and giraffes. That's great. And then you'll see giraffes, and that will be wonderful. There's not a place that I know of that you can go and see the J-pod equivalent to giraffes. J-pod.
see,
I bet
that. I mean, I bet that's not true, right? I mean,
okay.
Somewhere people know where the, you know, somebody's tracking African elephants.
Yes.
Right. I mean, somebody's, you know, nobody's tracking, I don't know, llamas in South America because there's millions, you know, but
yeah,
big endangered animals at some level, people are, you know, there's researchers, there's people that are doing that stuff.
Yeah. So
I wonder if it's something about the whales themselves.
There's definitely a portion, and it starts to get specific. So the whale Kiska has definitely a history. I don't know it as well as I know Lolita's. Lolita or Tokatai is a killer whale at the Miami Seaquarium. She's a southern resident. Like, we know this. This is public knowledge. We know who captured her when she was transferred. She was in there with Hugo. Like,
right.
We know where they came from, and we are still keeping tabs on her family. So that's definitely a part. And there are the individual killer whale movements for, like, there's a free Kiska. There's not a free Kiska as far as I know, but there's a free Lolita campaign, free Tokatai. There's also a free Morgan campaign, who's a whale that's in Spain. Have
you met all these people already who are running this stuff?
You know who runs the free Morgan campaign?
Visser,
precisely. So she runs the free Morgan campaign. I have met the person who runs the free Lolita campaign. It's a man named, I'm pretty sure at least one of the founders is this man named Howard Garrett. He runs the Orca network down in Washington, but I actually met him at a talk 2 years ago. Him and then Ken Balcomb is definitely a big proponent of it. I've met a lot of these people. They would not remember me for a second. I'd be a little blip, but yes.
See, no, here's a perfect example, right? This is before you got into whales. I didn't care at all, right? I mean, you know, I was peripherally aware of this stuff. now because of all the stuff I know from you, I find myself like there's 1,000 questions running through my head, right? So here's just one,
Okay.
right? And I have no idea if this is even a legitimate question.
Yeah.
So Kiska, you said, the one in Miami, right?
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The one that's a Southern resident,
Yes.
right?
Believe.
Now I'm tying this back, right?
Mhm.
You said you met the professor who studies like Orca dialects and stuff like that,
Yes.
right? Is there like, do people know? Let's just say you were to free that whale and bring him back or her back to,
Yep.
you know, to the Salish Sea. Does she still speak the same language?
That's a great
Right,
question.
like
It's fair.
that ought to be a thing that you can test, right? I mean, if like the thing makes noise and somebody, you can record it and you can say like that still sounds like this, or maybe it starts to sound like something else. Like that's a fascinating question that I would otherwise not care about at all. But I'm only interested because I'm talking to you and you're passionate about it.
And I'm just going to answer this with more questions that would go from there. It's like,
if you knew the answer, I'd be very impressed.
oh no, I do know the answer, and the answer is yes, they could figure that out. The answer also is like the reason that you can't reintegrate her into the pod is because of the social structure of the pod. The one killer whale that I've ever heard of that was taken from the wild, rehabilitated, and reintroduced and accepted back into the pod is a whale named Springer. Now, Springer was not out of the water for more than a year, or not out of the wild for more than a year. She was still young enough, relatively. I'm pretty sure it was a she. I'm pretty sure she was still young enough to be able to be reintroduced to the pod as a juvenile, I'll call it.
Where?
And in the Pacific Northwest. She was I'm pretty sure she was a Southern resident. And then more than that, she wasn't accepted right away. She she was held in this flotilla like pen, and by luck of the draw, the same as we had, there was a pod that went by and they opened it up and she went and swam like 100 meters behind them for a little bit. And then as the months went on, and they didn't know how it was going to go. They didn't know whether or not she would swim the other way or otherwise. But they were talking to each other. They spoke the same language. And as she was going out, she slowly was reintroduced over the next couple months. And so now we know her. I'm pretty sure she has a calf right now. But it's the only whale that I know of that has been actively reintroduced to its pod.
Feels like it should be a whole show.
That it could be. I could make a whole series about these little stories, and it would be enthralling.
This is the amazing thing. It's like you're not ever gonna run out of content.
No. Not, and like I haven't heard everything either, which is the best part.
Of course not. You don't know everything.
Yeah.
Even remotely.
Yeah, and like there's always something more too. Like even about some of these stories, I don't know. I know the Springer story. Do I know it well? That's a good question.
You talk to somebody who knows it really well.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a bunch of angles for it. Like definitely I want to talk to somebody who helped out Miracle at some point in time. I want to talk to people who were helping out Springer like on the ground, I would say, because there's a lot of people that curate this stuff. They're like the head of the Vancouver Seaquarium, or like the marine park in Victoria. Like he did a whole bunch to try to help out killer whales during the time too. But there was also like a plumber that revamped the hotel pool for Miracle.
Yeah, I feel like you could talk to that person for an hour.
Like that's got to be such a story though. Like you're sitting in your house, it's like 7 p.m. You're like, we're gonna have a whale in this pool in 7 hours. You need to get it ready.
Yeah.
So I definitely am excited. I think you've definitely shown me a little bit. Like there is so much fun to be had with this kind of thing, at the very least, which is going to be its own little journey.
Well, I just hope people go along for the ride with you.
I'm glad to say that some already are. The TikTok, I gotta say, is one of the coolest things that I've been putting out so far, and the response that I've gotten from people is even cooler. It's pretty amazing.
Well, as someone who just turned 50, it would be amazing if anybody who's following you on TikTok listened to an hour of me talking to you.
That would be quite impressive. So thank you to any of you who came over from that. I think
let us know specifically in comments. I would be insanely curious.
I would be impressed, to say the least. It means we're on the right path. So I'm excited to keep on messing up until it gets more and more correct.
Well, at worst, you'll just get to talk to people about whales, which is pretty much what you've been doing your whole life anyway.
Terrible. Yeah. What will I ever do? No, I'll definitely be enjoying myself at the very simplest. So this is.
All right, let me ask you one more question.
For me. Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question, because I've used the terms interchangeably, and I think you do too. But what do you prefer? Orca, killer whale, some other name?
I love the name Orca.
Okay.
It really Orca man. Yeah, I gotta say thank you. I think it's yes I'm F. There's some dude on TikTok who gave me that. He's like, I like your TikToks, Orca man, and I'm like, that's it. We're gonna end it there. That's perfect. I like Orca though. I think it's more. I think it's more fun. I think it hits the ear better, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure it means. I'm not sure if it means the sea, like Orcinus Orca or Orcinus Orca is like demon of the sea, devil of the sea. So it's like it has part of that in it. I'm pretty sure it's the sea part, but even so, it's like it hits the ear well. Hits the ear well. The orcas are there rather than the killer whales. So I will say I like that.
Excellent.
But it is interchangeable. Don't talk to when you talk to researchers, if any of you do, ask them which one do you prefer in XYZ terms, and then just keep with that one. Casual,
like that
doesn't matter.
There you go. I've given you like your first running thing. Right?
Yeah.
Keep track, right? Keep track as you talk to people, across all walks for this about what they prefer. You can keep like a little running tally.
There's going to be
I want to see when I'm watching like your 10th one of these, I want to see a little like thing on the bottom, like Orca, killer whale, like 7-3 or something.
Maybe. I would say I have to add Blackfish and a couple other ones too. I have a feeling that people are going to have their own little nicknames.
Yeah.
There's definitely someone out there who only knows orcas as Shamu. The Shamus, the Willies.
See, Fred, this would just be another one of those things where I'm like so far ahead of the game.
You know what's going on.
Like 5 years from now, you'll be on your 600th podcast, and this thing will be on there, and nobody else will remember that it was my idea to put that little running thing there.
It could be like it's been here.
I want credit.
Okay, put in little tiny ones. You got to zoom in for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll figure something out. That sounds good though. I'll definitely have to. Do that for the next one. I think I'm bringing Coral on for my next one though, and she calls them Billies. So it might be.
You're already gonna have like 3 things at the bottom. Orca, killer whale, Billies.
That'd be good. No, I'm excited.
There are no killer whales or orcas in the DR, are there?
Not that I know of. There are none in the Caribbean. I don't think they go down that far. I think it's a little hot for them, which is surprising because they show up in California sometimes, but not as far south as Southern California. There are Mexican ones though. There's so much to explore. I'm excited.
Excellent.
Without a doubt. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one.
Yeah.
We'll leave ourselves. I think we're sitting a good amount of time at the very least. So thank you so much for coming on. You have anything you want to say afterwards? You want to give out your socials, if anything?
No, but I'm very happy to be your first guest on this. This is a real honor. Yes, probably the thing you can tell people to follow me on if they care at all, and I post maybe like once a month on Twitter, just at RJ DeNisco. You'll put it on there on the video cast, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Once you go live, and I'll just say one thing, where we have talked for over an hour about orcas or killer whales, right? We've told stories. We've talked about the San Juan Islands, and somehow nachos have not come up one time. And we'll save that story for another time.
That will be its own. I think this one we're going to have to bait.
But that may be the greatest gift of all.
That's going to be like a special thing. Like when we hit a certain amount of following, like I'm impressed with this. That wasn't intended.
No, it wasn't at all. I just figured it would have come up. But let's just leave that as a tease for future podcasts.
Well, that's also one of the greatest stories of this entire experience. I would argue maybe the greatest one. It it has one of the biggest impacts, let me at least say, in terms of the people around us, like more than anything else.
It's been widely shared.
It's been widely shared. It's been more shared than
shared.
any other of these stories that we've told today, without a doubt.
And it's intensely like personal and unique, right? In the way that lots of other people have lots of other experiences with orcas.
Oh, without a doubt.
That is a different story.
It is a different story. I'm excited to actually sit down and go through that, because that's going to be an hour story of a day.
Yeah. Maybe when you have your mom on, you can ask her.
Maybe I'll have her tell her story, and then I won't say a word until later. But it will work out definitely. I'm excited to see when that will ensue. But it will without a doubt, without a fraction of a doubt. With that, I think we're gonna end off for now.
All right.
Thank you again.
Thanks everybody. Love you, Fred.
Love you too. Thank you everybody for coming. Once again, I'm the Orca Man. Have a good day.